thank you for having me. It's been a long time that you've been asking me to do this, and it's really interesting. When Evan asked probably a couple months ago, he's like, "You're next." And I was like, wow, but I don't know if I have enough to share. What do I have to provide people? And then good thing that I work a lot on myself and I didn't allow my mind to spiral down that rabbit hole. And instead, I started just going over all the things that I have accomplished, which felt way better. So I'm here to just share my story. And so as Evan said, I'm a raw vegan chef. I don't know if a lot of people know about what raw vegan foods are, but basically I don't cook anything. I chop, blend, sprout, ferment, dehydrate fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, seaweeds, mushrooms, spices into tasty meals. And my journey started in 2007, just about. My mom is a nutritionist, and when we moved from Brazil, where I was born and raised, in 2004, my mom was going through depression, a really dark time in our lives that I don't even have a lot of memories of. But around 2006, my mom went to a lecture by Dr. Brian Clement from Hippocrates Institute, which is actually here in West Palm Beach. You know it. And she learned about raw foods and healthy eating and just nourishing your body a different way. And it made sense for her. So she decided to go on a 10-day cleanse in this institute in Atlanta. And she came back and she said, wow, for the first time in 3 years, I don't feel like crying. So during those 10 days, she was eating mostly or 100% a raw vegan diet. She was doing workshops and hands-on classes and all these therapies. And I thought it was so amazing. At the time I was living in California and she was living in North Carolina, and she came to visit, all excited to share her raw vegan food with me. I had no idea what this was. In 2007, nobody was talking about it. So she went to the kitchen, and my mom owned a restaurant my whole life, and I knew she was good at it. So I was open to trying. She always taught me to not say I don't like something until I try it. But the combinations that she was making were really weird, and I was very skeptical about it. She made borscht, which is a raw vegan, it was a raw vegan version of borscht, which is originally a Russian soup, beet soup. I've never had the real thing, just to make it clear, so I can't compare. But I ended up eating like 3 full bowls of it. I'm like, this is so good. This is so amazing. And I got inspired during that week. She ended up gifting me a whole bunch of books. And a few months later, I decided to go on a cleanse myself. Originally, my inspiration was to lose some weight. Like every other woman, I just need to lose a few pounds. So I decided to challenge myself to 7 days of raw foods. I had nothing but a crappy blender, knife, cutting board, and a lot of willpower because I chopped the crap out of my vegetables and I made so-so meals, but I felt so amazing. I had so much energy. I was sleeping better. My skin started clearing. My digestion started working really well. And it didn't make sense for me to go back to my old eating habits when I'm feeling so good. So from Monday through Friday, I had to take food to work, and I decided to continue prepping like that. And then on weekends, I would allow myself to go out with my friends, and being from Brazil, people barbecue a lot. There's always a dead cow on the grill. And it was very natural that I didn't want to do that anymore. Slowly, I started transitioning because from Monday through Friday, I felt so good, and it made no sense for me to just go and pig out on weekends. And there was a lot of resistance from my friends and family. People didn't know what it was, and it's like, you're gonna get sick. And I think it's funny, because, oh yeah, all those fruits and vegetables are definitely gonna make me sick. But I didn't wanna fight it. And I found myself being very defensive about it, and I didn't wanna be like that. So I ended up, my life goes everywhere. So I ended up going back to North Carolina with my mom. And for a year, we made all the food. We really dove deep into learning how to prepare it better. And I even got a job at a raw vegan chocolate factory. That was a really good job. where people understood a little more of what I was doing. And then I still had my dream of being an architect. So as Evan mentioned, ever since I was a little kid, I always said, I'm going to be an architect. I used to draw floor plans at 7 years old. So I went to Brazil on vacation, and my dad says, if you come back, I'll pay for your school. Like, okay, this is a no-brainer. 2 weeks later, I was enrolled in school, and I was back in Brazil. But I didn't want to tell people the way I ate because I was so afraid of being judged and different and questioned. And I don't care about the way other people eat. I just wanted to be respected by my choices, right? And eventually, people started noticing that I never ate in public. And, food is such a social thing. And I started with saying, oh, I'm vegetarian. Oh, I'm vegan. Oh, I actually don't cook any of my food. At the time, I was very strict. Now I'm not anymore, but I was very strict. It was raw foods or nothing. And my friends actually thought I was cool. Go figure. So the moment that I decided to really embrace my weirdness, I guess, for me it was weird, people started really being curious and they wanted to learn more. So throughout those years in architecture school, I was also teaching English at a school nearby, and I always carried my food with me. And people started asking to buy my food. I'm like, oh, this is cool, okay. And I saw myself planting seeds accidentally, right? Because people would ask me about food and why I was eating the way I was. And I replied very naturally, but they didn't have that thought process. So for me, it's like, well, because when I started studying about raw foods, it made sense for me to not eat processed foods. Why are we eating all these chemicals? And why are we eating all these things that are making us sick? I want to eat things that would make me feel good. I want to eat food as close as nature intended for me to have it, because for me, it makes sense. And the way that I was feeling with the whole journey, it just made sense for me. But it was scary to share that, because as a society, we're not always ready, and we are very emotionally attached to our food habits. So slowly I started, making snacks and selling them around school. And then change of events again, I ended up finding myself in Florida. So 3 years into architecture school, my mom was in Florida. I came because I had to do my citizenship. And the idea was for us to continue the business here and for me to have a business in Brazil. And when we got here, my citizenship took way longer than I expected. So I ended up missing out on that year of architecture school. And I started going back to like, should I go do that? Should I just stay here? I really liked Florida. There's no winters. I love that. And I'm from the south of Brazil where it gets cold. But I still had like that guilt, my dad paid for 3 years of architecture school and I am failing him. And I had my mom on the other side, like, let's go, let's make this business happen. We can change the world. And that was really exciting to me. But it wasn't that pretty because my mom and we ended up getting ourselves in debt, and there was a lot of knowledge that I didn't have in business. I ended up actually breaking up with my mom at one point. And that's when I found myself coming to Fort Lauderdale. She wasn't happy. We were living in Port Orange. My mom was in Brazil and back and all the time. And that's another story. So I got fired from my own company by my mother. And we unfortunately don't really have a close relationship anymore because that really put a damp on things. And it's even hard for me to share this because I've always felt somewhat embarrassed by it. But, I'm sure not everybody's lives are perfect. So here I am in my vulnerability. So I'm actually very grateful for that moment in my life because it made me so much stronger. I'm an only child and I always got all of the attention. And people don't realize that it's not always great to get all the attention. And I always had my mom to go back to. And then after that moment, I didn't have it and I didn't want to. And it really forced me to grow up. I had to become an adult at 26 years old. And it was amazing. So I moved to Fort Lauderdale. I started bartending because I needed to pay off my debt and figure life out. And I started teaching classes on raw foods. Somebody was like, hey, I know this wine bar in Hollywood where they do events. Why don't you go and teach classes? You like doing that and you don't cook, so it's not like you need a kitchen. And I'm like, that's a great idea. So I put classes on Groupon and I started teaching them probably twice a month at a time, sometimes more or less. And I loved it. It was so amazing to go and share that with people. I felt really inspired after the classes because people were curious. I would make the food in front of them. It was just a demo. I would make all the food and serve, and people were really surprised at the way food tastes. And they were learning, so they were getting back to me. I had people that would come every time I had a class. So that was really motivational because I thought, well, there's something there. I can't let that go. And this was 2015 when I moved here, and then 2016 is when I met Evan at CreativeZen, or Creative Mornings at the time, and it was at Green Bar and Kitchen, which was also a vegan place that I had been meaning to try. And when I shared with Evan what I was up to, at the time I would be like, oh, I'm a bartender, but I also do this on the side. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. And his excitement was just so fantastic. I realized that my fears, I would come and share with people as if it didn't mean anything because I didn't feel my best knowing that I was bartending. There's nothing wrong with that, but I knew that I had more to offer and that wasn't my calling. But I was too embarrassed because I hadn't figured out how to make a business out of it that I didn't want to share my passion. And Evan went all in, like you always do. And he's like, I'm going to help you. We're going to make this happen. And he reaches out to Matthew Kenny Culinary School, which had been on my radar for years. And they were in Miami. They had just opened in Miami. He reaches out to them and say, hey, I have a friend who loves your stuff, and I want to know if you have a scholarship. They said they didn't, but they could give me 50% off. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take that leap of faith. And I'm going to go. At the time, I had gone to Brazil and not satisfied with leaving my career, I got all of my transcripts from architecture school. I got them all translated. I spent thousands of dollars translating them and bringing them back so that I could apply to architecture school here at FAU. And so I went to culinary school in the middle of the year. And I told my teacher, wow, you have my dream job. And she's like, great, let's talk. I'm like, what? It's like, I hate Florida. I want to go back to California, but I'm on a contract and I want to find somebody that can take over. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So culinary school was amazing for so many things. First of all, it was really nice to see that there were 10 students paying thousands of dollars to be there. I'm like, I can do this. People are looking for this information that I have too. It was really nice to feel a sense of belonging. Like, I'm in this class and nobody asks me where I get my protein from. It's great. And just learning and refining my skills, but also it gave me the confidence to realize that 8 years later, from the moment I went raw vegan in 2008 to 2016, and now I'm paying thousands of dollars to realize that I knew a lot of the things that they were teaching me. So that really made me super excited, and I got the job. So my teacher said, well, for you to teach here, you need to take the second month of classes. So this was a month-long program. I had to take the advanced one, and I took 2 months of classes in Miami while bartending. And then I got the job for weekend instructors. So I was going to culinary school from Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday, I was going back to Miami to teach those weekend workshops, which are really cool too, because there was no commitment. People would show up for a 3-hour class, amazing. And I was there for about 3 months or so, and the pay wasn't really good, and it was a part-time job, so I ended up leaving that. And then I applied to architecture school again, because I'm like, what am I gonna do with my life? I didn't see a light in the end of the tunnel, because I had dropped the school, and I didn't know what to do with myself, and I said, I need to do something. So I applied, I got accepted. They approved all of the credits that I had from Brazil, so I could start right where I had stopped and only have 2 years left to go. And then August comes around, I continue bartending in this whole time and teaching my classes on the side. But the school was really high end. So for me, teaching my classes where I'm bringing my flip out table and just setting up, it wasn't as cool. And so I go back to architecture school. I sit in class day one, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? I had to choose, right? I needed to either work and go to school or work or pursue my passion. And at that moment, I realized that I was chasing a piece of paper. I wanted to make my dad proud. I wanted to show him that I had accomplished whatever I had told him that I wanted to do. But it was literally just a piece of paper because it wasn't going to take me anywhere if I had in my mind that I was just going to go back to pursuing something with food afterwards. And so at that moment, I made peace with the fact that I was not going to go back to architecture school, that chapter was over forever in my life. And this was August, September 2017. And I was sitting in meditation, which is a practice that I do since I was a kid. And I saw myself at culinary school in Miami. In the meantime, and from the time that I stopped working there to the time I went to architecture school, they closed the school. So I thought to myself, I'm crazy. The school is not there. It doesn't exist anymore. There's no way I can go there. But, I just surrendered to it, and I realized, wow, this is really my passion because I was seeing myself in meditation. A week later, I get a call. Hi, Carla, this is Natalia from Plant Miami. We are reopening the program, and I found you online. Would you like to be our instructor? And I'm like, thank you, universe. It's almost as if the moment that you make a decision, everything starts falling into place. So I started teaching for them in that fall. In 2018, we officially got all the classes. They were paying me way better than I was getting paid before. So it was really worth the drive, worth the time. And I loved it. Having those consistent classes twice a week, doing what I loved consistently, really showed me this is what really warms up my heart. So I would come home at 11, 12 at night, and I couldn't sleep sometimes because I was so high on that energy and I was so happy with what I was doing. And I would get students that were like, oh, my child has an allergy and I don't know how to feed him. Can I come to more classes and learn? Or somebody that has IBS or digestive issues or whatever it is, and they need to heal, and they were coming to the classes to learn. So for me, that was really fulfilling. But I was still serving on the side. So 2018 was a very intense year because I was working about 7 days a week. And I decided to just go all in and hire a business coach to inspire me or to help me because I felt stuck. And I paid, again, thousands of dollars and out of my savings, and I'm freaking out. And it was really amazing to see that in the first month, I had brought back all the money that I had paid him. So I didn't even need to get that money out of my savings. I had it all. And my business was making way more money. And he got me to coach clients, which was something that I had never done, but I realized that I had the knowledge to do. He got me to really reduce my schedule on the restaurant. And I started meal prepping for people, which was something that I really resisted. But I noticed that people were coming to my classes in Miami and saying, oh, I could eat like this all the time if somebody prepped for me. I don't want to be doing this all the time. And we know that we live in a world that doesn't support healthy eating because it's way easier to go to anywhere and get junk food than to really make your own food, right? We have evolved to being on the go, 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 and that's what we focus on. So I decided to take the opportunity because I had people that kept asking me to meal prep for them. And I actually enjoyed it. So that year, in the end of the year, my coach calls me and says, hey, we're done with our work. You told me that when we started working together, you wanted freedom and you wanted to go and spend Christmas with your family in Brazil. Because I don't know if you know this, but when you work in the food industry here in Florida, it's high season. There's no way that you can take a break during the holidays. So I hadn't really spent the holidays with my family in years. And he's like, what are you waiting for? Buy your ticket. And I'm like, oh, they're not going to give me the time off. He's like, buy your ticket. And I said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to buy my ticket. So I came to my manager and I said, hey, can I go to Brazil for Christmas? And he's like, oh, I can give you a couple days. I'm like, man, a couple days, it takes me 20 hours to get there. That's it. I cannot even stay any time. I'm going for 2 weeks. And he's like, I don't think so. And I'm like, well, I actually bought my ticket. These are my dates. If you want me back, you can schedule me after this day. And that's when I got myself fired. And it was the best thing that could have happened, because it was just such a push for me to really figure my shit out, you know? So I came back from Brazil and everything worked perfectly. I started getting clients. I went from having 2 clients to now 16 clients a week. And I do that consistently. And I have other private clients that come, and I have private classes. Plant Miami closed last year with the pandemic. So they are open as a restaurant, but they're not open for the culinary classes. And it was also amazing to see that I had to also figure that out and how to complement that income. And I created a program, a 21-day program for people to eat raw foods, where I deliver the food 3 times a week and I make other meals. And it's a lot of work and I freaking love it. It's really cool to see the transformation. I put them all in a Facebook group and I go live every day and I motivate and inspire and teach them why they're doing what they're doing. And that has been going really well. I've been offering that about 3 times a year. And it's really cool that when you follow your heart, things just happen, you know? And for me, it was just amazing. And I wanted to pursue that because I felt like I could really offer more value to the world with teaching people how to eat healthier. Because my motivation was seeing my mom not doing well, or seeing my friends, my best friend having kidney stones at 15, but eating crap, you know? And people just don't know any better. And I realized that I take my knowledge for granted. And like I said, when I went to culinary school, I realized that I knew so much, and it was a wake-up call for me to say, wow, I really need to count my blessings, because I know way more than I give myself credit to. So that's my motivation for doing what I do now. And yeah, I just want to change the world one bite at a time.